testimony as a financial advisor.
Oh, take the money and run.
This record is not available in or out of stores. You can only hear it weekday mornings from 6 to 9 a.m. on Mornings with Brian, here on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Women were the first to notice Jesus' tomb was empty. It should be no surprise Jesus had a special role for women in ministry. I'll talk with Dr. Julie Slattery about ways we can equip women to serve in ministry leadership to both strengthen them in their calling and advance the gospel.
Listen to Living by Faith with Trillian Newbell this Saturday at 9 a.m. on Moody Radio.
The following is a test of the emergency alert system. This has been a test of the emergency alert system, providing timely emergency warnings. This station serves Northeast Ohio and Northwestern Pennsylvania areas. This concludes this test of the emergency alert system.
Loving God with our hearts and our minds. It's Mornings with Brian, live from the North Coast Family Foundation sponsored studios on Moody Radio Cleveland. WCRF Cleveland. WVMS Sandusky. WVML Millersburg. WVMN Newcastle. WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
The NAACP is suing the Department of Education over efforts to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in schools. It's 6 o'clock. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. The federal suit argues that the government's moves are discriminatory and unconstitutional and have a chilling impact on efforts to make sure Black students are given equal educational opportunities. The NAACP claims the Department of Education is making policies based on factual inaccuracies and misinterpretations of civil rights laws. The Cleveland Metropolitan Board of Education is making the decision to close Newton D. Baker Elementary. Board members have approved a plan to close the school by a unanimous vote. Baker will close at the end of the current academic year. Akron Public Schools Superintendent Michael Robinson is being placed on paid leave. Members of the Board of Education made the move after hearing results of a months-long investigation into Robinson. In sports, the Guardians took down the Orioles 6-3, but the Pirates got shut out by the Nationals 3-0. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Mostly cloudy today with highs in the upper 40s. At last check, we did have some clouds in the Cleveland area where it is 40 degrees. Akron and Canton, cloudy and 35. Lorraine, Elyria, cloudy and 39 degrees.
It's time for your Moron Moment.
As the foundation for your entire body, there's a whole lot of your health that begins in your feet. Proper footwear is crucial for overall health, preventing injuries and supporting your body alignment. It provides protection, support, cushioning, reducing the risk of foot problems, and improving comfort and performance. When you donate new shoes through Buckner, they will be received by one of the world's most vulnerable children. Buckner has distributed 5 million pairs of new shoes and socks to children in over 80 countries. And that's your Moron Moment.
Moron.
And you can find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 6:02 with Moody Radio News. I'm Ron Eastwood.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
When they get that new pair of shoes on, they just light up. It's just such a beautiful moment.
One of the things I loved is that you guys have delivered over 4 million pairs of new shoes and socks.
We have little kids that wait for the next year for us to give them shoes to go to school.
I mean, talk about a game changer. You wouldn't think of something as little as a pair of shoes and socks that children in need, allowing them to go to school.
They can come to a Family Hope Center. They can learn about Jesus. Most importantly, they will know that they are important and loved by God. You're communicating the love of God to a child.
Well, good morning, friends. It's a special Wednesday here. I'm glad to be back, but I'm more excited to be back because it's a special day where we're asking for your support to help kids in need. I mean, come on. Kids in need. It's not like they need a car or they...
Right.
They need, I'd like a new bike. No.
If I'm with my grandkids, they need candy or ice cream or something. That's what they think they need. They've got plenty of shoes.
Yeah, and so we're asking you today to help provide a pair of shoes and socks for a kid in need around the globe.
True need.
And that's why we're partnering today and tomorrow with Buckner International. They provide, you guessed it, shoes and socks for kids in need around the world. Mm-hmm. Specifically, there's a handful of countries where there's vulnerable children who will receive a pair of shoes as a result of our discussions the next 2 days. Guatemala, Mexico, Peru, Honduras, Dominican Republic, Kenya. Some will even go to kids in need here in the U.S.
Mm.
And so, I mean, I hope I don't have to tell you this, but it is, I guess we take for granted the idea that shoes are something we all just have.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can even take your kids to Payless.
Pairs, I got like 50 pairs of shoes.
Yeah, I begrudgingly go and get shoes every once in a while. But it's not like I'm worried about affording them.
No.
Or getting them. Your husband, Eddie, could provide a small country with shoes.
Yes, he could.
He loves shoes. It's like a hobby for him.
Yes.
Now, Ron, you got, how many pairs of shoes you got? Like 3?
2, and they're his sons.
Yeah. I have been running low because all my son's shoes, the rubber actually hardens over a decade or more. And so when I've taken them out for a 1.5 mile walk, I come back and the sole is broken.
Yeah, it's petrified rubber after all that time.
Yeah, I'm down to about 7 pair, but some of those will probably break when I wear them for the first time out.
I'd bring up Imelda Marcos, but I feel like it's too old. I'm too old for that.
Yes, I would be right there with you.
She had how many pairs of shoes around? Like 1 million or something?
What?
Yeah.
It's some famous person from somewhere, the Philippines?
Yeah, she used to be the first lady of the Philippines.
She was all into shoes, and she had like the world's largest collection of shoes. And everyone's like, why? But anyway.
That's where you get the old saying, if the shoe fits, buy the factory.
I didn't know that. Thank you, Ron.
Yes.
And now,
heard that on Guam.
She's known somewhat as the Imelda Marcos of Akron. Daria Swisher.
Hi.
Are you a shoe gal?
Not really.
No, you're not.
I wear them until they fall apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then I go kicking and screaming to the store to get more.
Yeah, you're like me. You hate shoe shopping, as I recall.
I just hate shopping in general.
Yeah.
Because nothing fits the way I want it to. Nothing's in my style.
Yeah, and there's a constant conversation among my girls in my family, my wife, my daughters, about shoes. What about these shoes with this outfit? Are you sure I could wear these instead? And I look at them and I go, they're shoes, you know?
Yeah.
And they look fine. I don't know if I can wear these shoes with this outfit. Why not? I don't even notice people's shoes.
Right.
But nonetheless, we have them. That's the point of all this, is that it's a very simple thing for us to have shoes. And around the world in impoverished communities and countries, if you don't have shoes, you can't go to school.
Mm.
If you don't have shoes, you can get diseases, obviously.
Yes, obviously.
Unprotected. I mean, goodness sakes.
You have cuts on your feet, and then you're walking around in dirt or other things. You're going to get infections.
I got a cut on my toe yesterday while wearing Crocs. Explain that.
Well, there's holes.
Crocs are not good shoes.
You take that back.
Nope, I will not.
Daria Swisher. And also, by the way, you won't be surprised to hear that as part of the process, when Buckner gives kids a pair of shoes, somebody, a volunteer, usually someone on a missions trip, kneels down in front of them, washes their feet, puts the socks and shoes on their feet, and has an opportunity then, because the kid's like, Why are you doing this? And then they have hope centers that give kids the gospel, but it's a pair of shoes and socks and the gospel. So here's what you've been looking for, all right? So it's $15 for a new pair of shoes and socks, which is a bargain deal, let me tell you.
Yeah, that's just one pair. Yeah.
And it's new. It's not like we're giving them Ron's old broken shoes that he was just describing.
It's going to last them.
So a $30 gift gets 2 kids a new pair of shoes and socks. $60, 4 kids. $120, 8 kids. $240, 16 kids.
You're impacting a lot of people with not a huge amount of money.
So would you do that? Here's how you do it, okay? You can go to a website, giveshoesnow.com. I'm sure our website has links too. You can go to ours, but giveshoesnow.com. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Giveshoesnow.com. Or call 866-774-SHOE. 866-774-SHOE. Okay? We're going to play some music while you give. Help us do this. We're partnering with Buckner International to make sure that kids around the world get tangible support that they need.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
talk about the joy of receiving and the impact that shoes has on the life of a child, not to mention the feet of a child. But I met a good friend a few years ago who has a company not too far from Dallas. And he reached out to me, and he's an older gentleman who had grown up in the church, a very committed deacon in his church, and loves Jesus, just loves Jesus. And we became good friends. And he had the ability through his company to make a donation of some boots and other shoes for children that we were able to use. But the thing I loved about that was being able to sit down with this new friend and get to know him. And we think, oh, he's an older guy, he probably they get rough around the edges as we get older. He was as soft as they come. And for him, just the giddiness and the joy of being able to donate, knowing that these shoes were going to help children. And so he made a significant donation of shoes through his company to us. He reached out to me again about a year later, and he said, Scott, I've got some more if you want them. And I could tell that it had meant so much to him to be a part of that whole process. And 3 times now, he has donated to us. He calls me now once a year to see if we need them, he'll say, if you need them, because he's trying to be thoughtful. And I say to him, of course we do. We always do. There are children all over the world who need them. It just is so much fun to see the joy of giving from someone, because shoes, in this case boots, are such a practical item that we all take for granted until you really think about it. This friend of mine thought about it, and in his heart, really led by passion for his love for Jesus, wanted to do something to help boys and girls that he will never, ever meet.
Powerful story about Buckner International. 619 WCRF Mornings with Brian. We're spending today and tomorrow with you pointing to kids in need around the globe who don't have a pair of shoes and socks. And that prevents them from going to school, having proper hygiene. I mean, come on, we all know the power of a pair of shoes. Mm-hmm. So we're spending today and tomorrow asking for your financial support. Really easy. $15 is where it all begins. $15, pair of socks and shoes for one kid. It's that simple. And then increments of that change things, in terms of how many kids get shoes. So $30, 2 kids get a pair of shoes and socks. $60, 4 kids. $120, 8 new pairs of shoes and socks for 8 different kids. You understand how that works because it's what we call math. Mm-hmm. Someone wrote it down for me, so they did the math already, but that's how it works. What'd you give? It's so practical. 866-774-SHOE. 866-774-SHOE. Or go to giveshoesnow.com, giveshoesnow.com, giveshoesnow.com. Or if you have our number saved here at the station, just text the word shoes to us. We'll send you back a link. And we can't wait to thank you for your generosity. We'll get to more conversation about the power of shoes in the life of a kid here in just a minute.
Join a diverse group of local business and community leaders on Thursday, May 8th at the Cleveland Leadership Prayer Breakfast. Make friends and business contacts. And join us in prayer and the keynote address about fearless leadership from Jeff Struker. He's a member of the U.S. Army Ranger Hall of Fame who's been in several battles. Find out more and purchase your tickets by sending the word prayer to 440-546-2255 or go to neoleadershipevents.com. Register by April 30th.
Millions of children throughout the world lack one simple item that could open the door to health, education, opportunity, and Jesus. Shoes. This spring, Moody Radio and Buckner International are partnering with you to provide hope to kids in need throughout the world by providing new shoes and socks, critical care, and the love of Jesus in some of the most vulnerable places. Right now, more than 42,000 children are waiting for the first gift of new shoes. Give today at giveshoesnow.com.
Today, there is a disciple-making church planting movement that's taken root in 40 countries around the world. It's called the Timothy Initiative, and its mission is to see a healthy church planted in every village, everywhere. Since 2007, over 200,000 churches have been planted through the work of the Timothy Initiative, but there's more work to be done. Take your place in the Timothy Initiative. Go to ttiglobal.org.
Keeping your eyes on Jesus in a changing culture can be difficult. Let let us help. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
effects of COVID. Of course, the physical effect of illnesses and the deaths that we've all seen around us and so forth. One of the lingering effects from COVID that we've seen has been the lack of touch. I was able to be in Guatemala recently. I was in Mexico recently. I've been in the Dominican Republic in just the last few months. Hearing consistently from people there, people who work with Buckner, who work on our teams there, but also people we serve, is they miss us. Our mission teams have not been able to visit. Our mission teams have not been there. It's the casualty of touch. And of course, being able to put a pair of shoes on a child's feet, there's the physical effect that it has for a child. But one of the things that is just almost impossible to overcome is the lack of touch and being in touch with the people there. That is something that I think we've seen, in addition to the struggle of being able to have our normal shoe drives over the years. The last few years, we've not been able to collect as many shoes. So there's the urgency of that we would expect. But I think for me, the thing that I see that is tragic that I hope we can soon overcome is being there, because there's just absolutely nothing like seeing the light in the eyes of a child when you put on that new pair of shoes and they bounce in them for the first time. That ministry of touch and of presence is, even today, sort of a lingering effect of COVID.
Once again, this is Mornings with Brian on WCRF, and that one, that conversation there you just heard was a man telling us about the power of giving a pair of shoes to some kids around the world who don't have them. It's that simple. We're partnering this day and tomorrow. I was going to say this week, but it's today, this day, and tomorrow.
And henceforth.
With Buckner International. Henceforth.
Oh, my gosh.
On this day and tomorrow.
I will say we don't laugh like this when you're gone, so.
That is true, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm worth something.
Yes. You bring happiness and joy.
By the way, I'll share a lot more detail next week about my experience in a military base and seeing my daughter graduate from boot camp. It was
just the convergence of time is unfortunate.
Yeah, I'll just tell you briefly. It was incredible. I'm so proud of her. And there's videos on our social media sites. There's a video and some pictures.
We do have the pictures up. We've not posted the video yet.
Oh, okay. And one fun piece of information. Once we got on the base, I'd never been on a base before, military base.
Yeah, I know. You're really panicked about it.
It was another, once you go through security, show your deal to a soldier, blah, blah, blah. 20 more minutes of driving until we got to the chapel.
Wow, it's big.
And on the side of the road were regular speed limits and tank speed limits, which I haven't seen that before.
They got to go slow.
That was kind of fun.
Tank speed limit, just one of the road signs?
Yeah, it was be like a truck, and it'd show that speed limit, and then it would be a tank and that speed limit. You know, obviously.
Fun.
Yeah.
You got to know how fast you can go in a tank.
Exactly.
If you're driving one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone can stop you, though.
True.
Yeah, pull over.
No.
Make me.
Turn around the turret. I'll go as fast as I want. Thank you very much. Okay, but that's not why we're here. We're here to partner with our friends at Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls, where there's kids around the globe in countries like Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, Peru, Dominican Republic, Kenya, who don't have a simple pair of shoes and socks. And because of that, they can't go to school. A lot of countries around the world, you can't get in for a certain list of things, including like you have to pay a certain amount of money. But at minimum, you have to have a pair of shoes. They're not going to give them to you. So without that, they can't get educated. There's risk of disease when your feet are constantly getting scuffed and cut. And when Buckner gives a pair of shoes to a kid in need, they also share the gospel with them. They literally kneel down, wash their cute little feet, or if they're teenagers, probably their big stinky feet, whatever it is. They wash the feet, put on the shoes and socks, and the kids are like, why are you doing this? Because Jesus, that's why.
Right. And that makes it an event. It's not like you're just opening a package, which would be one level, but you're going way above and beyond actually sitting them down, washing their feet, and using that as an opportunity to make it a memory, make it a big event in their lives when they got these shoes because of Christians in other countries who love them and care for them.
Yeah, amen. And we've had a couple people already give, which we're very excited about, Lauren. Can you share a couple of the names?
Yeah. Melinda in North Royalton, Gregory in Akron, Sandra in Chardon, Noah in Garfield Heights, Debbie in Homeworth, Mary in North Kenton, Ethan in Navarre, Susan in Hudson, Yvonne in Shaker Heights, Rosa in Strongsville, Vera in North Olmsted, Barbara in Ashland, Lynn in Cleveland, and Donald in Strongsville.
So only $15 would provide a pair of shoes and socks for a kid around the world that doesn't have it. It's very tangible, clear, achievable. But in increments of 15, things increase then, of course, obviously. So $30, two pairs of shoes and socks. So not for one kid, two different kids.
Right.
So $60, 4 kids get a pair of shoes and socks. $120, 8. $240, 16 kids. You get the picture. Now's the time to give. We're partnering with Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls today and tomorrow, or on this day and tomorrow, for you to partner with us in this to make sure kids get what they need around the world, okay? A pair of shoes. What else do they need? 866-774-SHOE. 866-774-SHOE, which is 7463. Or giveshoesnow.com, giveshoesnow.com, giveshoesnow.com. or just text the word shoes to us. We'll send you a link.
I'm Joy Traxel, and this is Pause for Prayer. I was recently speaking to one of my children, and while we were on the phone, their baby began to cry. They picked up the child, held her tightly, and the crying stopped. It reminded me of Psalm 139:10 that reads, "Even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me." How amazing to know that we can be held by God. Just as we comfort the smallest of these, God can comfort us. Are you feeling overwhelmed or anxious? Stop and let God hold you. Sit in His presence and allow Him to bring the peace that He promises. Let's pause and pray. Gracious God, we come to you today with peace, knowing that you hear us, with peace, knowing that you see us and will respond. God, we stop at this time to give you praise for who you are. You are all that we need, and we can depend on you. God, you made promises to never leave us or forsake us, and we can lean on that. Would you forgive us when we don't trust you and we lean on our own humanness and strength? Help us to do better. We need to be held by you today. The world around us seems to be out of control with bad news everywhere. But just as a parent comforts a crying child, we ask for that comfort today. Help us to feel your nearness. Help us to feel your comfort. Help us to feel the peace that you promise, the peace that goes beyond a worldly understanding and comprehension. God, you know the request of each one that is praying right now. Would you meet them in a deep and personal way? We pray today that we reflect you in all things and in all ways. Help us to point others to you by the way we walk through these trying times. Bring those into our path that need to hear about a God that sees, hears, and comforts. A God that can hold all things together. And we ask this in the powerful name of Jesus. Amen.
Parents, youth pastors, are you looking for a life-changing opportunity for your teens this summer? The Experience Jesus Conference, June 23rd through 28th at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, isn't just another event. It's a 5-day experience where high school students learn to share their faith on the streets of Chicago.
XJ grounded my faith and inspired me to share the gospel.
Register now at moodyconferences.com/XJ. Early bird rates end April 30th.
Join the conversation by call or text at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
angle of this that I always encourage parents is get your kids involved in this. Your kids understand shoes. They know what a pair of shoes means to them. And so it's an easy, teachable moment of what it means to give in the name of Jesus. And from my own experience, our daughter was just a little girl. She was 4 years old when Buckner started this. And I remember my wife and I took her to a shoe store, and we let Claire pick out a pair of shoes for a little girl her age that she wanted to donate. I remember she said, "Can I get two?" And of course we said, "Well, sure." All these years later now, I think that spirit of giving that she learned as a small child, it has stuck with my daughter. And she is today a very, very giving person.
You're listening to Mornings with Brian on WCRF, and what a treat. We have a friend of mine. We're traveling buddies. We went to India together. She is co-host of Moody Radio Chattanooga's Mornings with Tom and Tabby. Tabby Upton, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Brian. I am thrilled to be able to talk to you. And yes, we are traveling buddies. So next time we got to go to Oaxaca, Mexico.
I would love to do that. And I'm actually a little surprised you want to travel with me again. That's fun. It wasn't too traumatic, huh?
It wasn't. Just that one time you left me in the middle of the street. Just that one time. Everything else was perfect.
That's so funny. But now you brought up Oaxaca, Mexico, because your radio station has a long history with a new partner of ours, Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls. Can you just give us the basics of who they are and what they do?
Yeah, so Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls is a ministry that actually helps put shoes on the feet of children all around the world. Started many years ago with a preacher who traveled, I believe, to Russia and was struck by the fact that the kids were sharing shoes in an orphanage that he visited, and he wanted to help out. So started by helping that orphanage, and then it expanded to all over the world. And the whole idea is shoes are just an entry point into what they call hope centers, where they go into a community. They're there for many years, building relationships, helping that community in terms of their spirituality, but also their family relationships, and helping them get out of poverty. So they teach different skills for entrepreneurship and other things to increase the income of the families that they work with.
Now, I love how tangible this is because people can wrap their heads around, shoes for kids who don't have them. And you had the privilege of seeing them. It was distribute the shoes, yeah?
That's exactly right. I went on one of their trips. They do missions trips to specific places, and we in the Tennessee Valley go to Oaxaca, Mexico. We've been doing this for several years, and actually we've been working with this ministry for 25 years. Wow. And so in 2019, I was able to go to Oaxaca with a group of other listeners, and we did what's kind of like a vacation Bible school style week, where we would go to different hope centers, and we would play games with the kids. We'd do crafts. We'd do a Bible story. And then, of course, we would give out shoes. And the kids were so excited. Their parents were excited. And it's just a delight to actually see the culmination of what a shoe collection is actually doing.
Do you have a favorite story that stands out from that trip to see what Buckner is doing?
I have a couple of stories, and I'll be brief, Brian.
That's great. No, go for it.
Well, first of all, of course, putting the shoes on the children's feet. They're sitting there, but they're not like loud, like American kids are a little rambunctious. Yeah. These kids are so polite, and they're patient, and they would sit, but you could tell they were excited. And they came prepared, because after we would get out our wet wipes and wipe their feet down, put clean socks on their feet, and then give them their shoes and make sure they fit, they would sometimes whip out gifts for us. Oh. They had thought this through. They knew that they were going to get shoes, and they wanted to thank us. So I have little cards from kids. I have little dolls that they made out of yarn. I have other artwork that they gave. I took those things home with me, and I thought, wow, how thoughtful. We were giving, but they were giving as well.
And now,
I'm
sorry. Go ahead. Go for it.
Well, that's the ministry part, but just the cultural part, I did get to eat a grasshopper. I just wanted to get that in here somehow.
How did it taste?
It tasted good. It was chili lime.
Okay. Crunchy, squishy,
crunchy, and I was dared to do it, and I did it, but it really was crazy. I was really just counting 1, 2, 3 and swallowing it because I was, I was freaking out just a little bit, but it was actually good.
Okay, now somebody might ask you, why shoes? Of all things that those who are experiencing poverty could receive, why is it shoes that they focused on at Buckner?
I think that sometimes the smallest idea, like Jesus would talk about the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed that, becomes this tiny seed becomes the biggest plant in the garden. I think sometimes God gives people what seems like a small idea, but it mushrooms. And I think shoes are that. Everybody needs a pair of shoes, whatever that looks like in that culture. It could be flip-flops in one culture, or sandals, or boots in another one. But everybody needs that. We can all rally around that. But the shoes open the door to all other types of ministry, and people will come to get their physical needs met, and then they're more open to spiritual needs as well as even emotional needs as well. So I think that's the magic of it, and we all around the world relate to shoes. When you need new shoes, you need new shoes, and so we get that, and they get that, and it's something that we can all share with each other.
Beautiful. Again, we've been having a great discussion with our friend Tabi Upton. She's co-host of Tom and Tabi in the morning at Moody Radio Chattanooga, which is a sister station of ours. We're actually big fans of Tabi and Tom, and I'm afraid if you go listen to their show, you might ditch us and listen to them. But I have to ask, how can folks learn more about what you guys are doing down there?
Hey, you can always download our podcast, Mornings with Tom and Tabi. You can hear interviews there, and you can always visit our website, moodyradio.org/Chattanooga.
Thanks so much, Tabi.
Thank you, Brian.
Oh, our sweet friend Tabi. She's the best. 645 WCRF. We did travel together to India, as you heard. There are many misadventures, but I love that she has actually been with Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls, as she mentioned, to Mexico, and got to actually be the person who volunteers to put a brand new pair of shoes on a kid's feet.
That would be moving.
Yeah, and she's a huge fan of what they do, and we're partnering with Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls today and tomorrow, and your gifts are what get these kids the shoes they need. Okay? Here's how you give. 866-774-7463. 866-774-7463, or go to giveshoesnow.com, giveshoesnow.com. And if you have our number saved here at the station, just text us the word shoes to 440-546-2255. We'll send you back a link. But for now, again, it's super simple. $15 gets a brand new pair of shoes and socks for a kid who doesn't have them. $30, 2 kids. $60, 4 kids. $128. You get how that works. Give now. It's 646 WCRF.
Easter is here, and we celebrate the amazing miracle of Jesus coming back to life with Today in the Word's family study. Fact is, the story of Jesus' death and resurrection is something we can think about all year long. It's not just for Easter, it's for every day. Enjoy hands-on learning activities for the whole family. Download your free copy of this month's family study at todayintheword.com/family. Let's spend time in God's Word together.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I'm Claire from Trinity Debt Management. I'm a counselor, and the reason that I love working for Trinity is because I get to help folks with one of the hardest problems a family can face, and that's financial difficulties. In this day and age, everything is going up. You have higher utilities, higher grocery bills, higher fuel, and those credit card interest rates have gone up as well. We can help you with that. We can help you get lower interest rates, lower monthly payments. In just a few minutes, we put together a plan that gets you out of debt and keeps you out of debt. I love my job. It's a great program and a very smart way to find debt relief.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-659-9838.
I'm Claire, a Trinity counselor. Call me and become debt-free for keeps.
1-800-659-9838.
Good morning, Cleveland. Thanks for choosing us to help you start your day. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Last year, we had the opportunity after COVID to make our first trip internationally. So a group of us went to Guatemala and we visited a number of ministry sites there. And part of what we always do is we like to give shoes to children. We had a whole line of children who were ready to receive a new pair of shoes. And one little girl, probably about 9 or 10 years old, stood out to me. Her name was Amina. She had come to a block party and fiesta we were having, and we were giving shoes out, and she had made the walk with her mom. But what stood out to us is that because we had not been able to get shoes during the COVID period there, it had been difficult. She had not had a new pair of shoes in quite a while. And she had a pair of shoes that were old and battered. They didn't fit right. In fact, they were so tight on her feet that she couldn't wear socks. And she had taken to wearing this beat up pair of shoes without a pair of socks. It was a painful walk. She made it to where we were gathered, and during that got a brand new pair of shoes. One of the Buckner staff who was familiar with the family told us later that she didn't have a father that she knew of, that she lived with her mother and her sister. And she said to us that this little girl, Amina, lived in absolute poverty. Her mother did everything she could to make ends meet. And something that I think we just don't think about, and that is the economic power of a pair of shoes. Her mother had not been able to afford to buy a pair of shoes. She was waiting for Buckner to get a pair of shoes to her. And getting a new pair of shoes was economic relief for this little girl and for her mother because she couldn't afford to go buy them. And we forget about that for people who live in such abject poverty around the world, that here this little girl had gone through so much because she needed a pair of shoes.
It's something we all take for granted, isn't it? A pair of shoes. So easy to get. There's very few people in America who ever even worry about shoes. But nonetheless, it's something around the world that is one of the entry points to an education. Again, this is WCRF, Mornings with Brian. Today and tomorrow, or if you've been listening a little bit longer, this day and tomorrow, we shall be partnering with Buckner International. They've been for many, many years, in fact, over 100 years, helping out kids in need. And they've been since 1999 providing a pair of shoes and socks to kids in need around the globe, along with the gospel. You wouldn't think we would do something that didn't have the gospel with it, did you? Oh, come on. We have right now 25,000 children are waiting for a pair of shoes and socks in countries like Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, Peru, Dominican Republic, Kenya. Even there are some kids here in the U.S. that don't have a pair of shoes. I don't even think about shoes.
I just finished a book. It's the history of Puerto Rico, and the author talks about how his grandparents, so his grandmother and whatever that'd be, great uncle, whatever, would have to, one would go to school in the morning and then would come home and take off their shoes and give it to their sibling. And then the sibling would go to school because they only had one pair of shoes at all for the household for children. So they had to split going to school because you were required to wear shoes to go to school, but they only had one pair.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
That's never a thought that crosses my mind because we spend so much time getting frustrated at all the shoes. Mm-hmm. We have our mudroom in the house, we call it.
Yeah. Oh, I am
everywhere shoes.
Yes, frustrated at my little shoe rack in my house.
Like there's shoes.
There's too many shoes.
Why are they there? Like sometimes you're like, whose shoes are these?
Yes.
And no one will claim them. and then somebody piles all the shoes into the baskets we have, and then I can't find my shoes.
Can't find the pair.
At least not the pair I want.
Right.
Again, this is the existence of the American. We're annoyed by our shoes.
Yeah.
Or we collect them. And there's people around the globe that have to share one pair just to go to school. So your gift today will not only provide a pair of shoes and socks to a child in need who doesn't have them, but a volunteer will kneel down, wash their little feet, put on shoes and socks, and share the love of Christ with them. And every pair of shoes and socks comes with a little note with scripture or words of encouragement to show them the love of Jesus.
And if you think about, you're outside all the time without shoes, you're going to get cuts or wounds of some kind. And then you stay outside without shoes or even just in your house and you step in dirt or you step in some grass that has weird stuff. You step on tiny creatures. It's going to get infected.
Yeah.
And then you get some disease. And we can help protect children from getting those diseases.
And the giving is super simple. $15 is what it would cost. And 100% of those proceeds go to people in need. So $15 provides a pair of shoes and socks for a kid. And then you can do math problems. Someone did them for me because they know who I am. So $30, 2 kids get a pair of shoes and socks along with the gospel. $60, 4 kids. $120, 8 kids. $240, 16 kids.
And I know sometimes we're like, well, what else are you doing to share the gospel? You're just giving them shoes and then you never follow up on that. Well, Buckner International has, I think they're called, is it Hope Centers or something like that?
Family Hope Centers.
Family Hope Centers. And they then have an in with this family. They've met this child. They've given them a pair of shoes. And now they have an in with this family to invite them to the Hope Centers.
Right.
To come hear more about Jesus and his love for them. And by giving them a pair of shoes, by providing a physical need, you're able to have an in with a family that you didn't have before.
Scripture says they'll know we are Christians by our love.
Yeah.
When you show the love of Christ by providing shoes and socks for these children, you show their entire family, their entire community, that you love them and then they're willing to listen to your message because of what you've done already.
One of the stories they shared with us about a Family Hope Center was about a little girl named Dulce, and they didn't have enough money for food, let alone shoes. And so here's a quote from her mother, from Dulce's mother. "Before you came, Buckner, it was a sad life, but I had dreams. I dreamed of having shoes for my girls." A mother's dream was shoes for her girls. And now I do. I dreamed of having a stove. And now I do. You also gave us food, medical care, counseling, school supplies, and even furniture. I know these gifts come from God, and I feel more safe and confident because I have the support of people like you. It's hard for us to conceptualize this level of poverty because we don't see it in our country. But there are people who have a dream for their kids, and the dream is shoes. And your gift today will provide that along with the truth of the gospel. Would you give, again, $15 in increments thereof?
I don't know. Both.
Give a pair of shoes and socks to a kid just like Dulce, okay? Here's how you give. 866-774-SHOE. 866-774-SHOE, which is 7463. So 866-774-7463. Or go to giveshoesnow.com. That's an easy one. Giveshoesnow.com. Our website has a link. You can even text us at the station here, the word shoes, and we'll send you back a link. All right, we'll continue chatting about this here after we get to Ron's news.
For your spirit, soul, and body, it's Mornings with Brian, live from the North Coast Family Foundation sponsored studios. Good morning from Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
President Trump says he's considering sending U.S. citizens who've committed violent crimes to prisons in El Salvador. It's 7 o'clock. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Trump said, "We're looking into it and we want to do it," referring to them as homegrown criminals. His comments come as the fate of a man from Maryland wrongly deported to El Salvador is still up in the air. Charges are being filed against a man who police say was aiming a rifle at a neighboring apartment from the balcony of his Westlake apartment. No shots were fired and no injuries were reported. The suspect was arrested on charges of inducing panic. And members of the Ohio House are hoping to secure pay raises for county and township officials across the state. Representatives have included an annual pay hike of 5% for those officials in their 2-year operating budget draft. In sports, the Guardians took down the Orioles 6-3, but the Pirates got shut out by the Nationals 3-0. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Mostly cloudy skies today with highs in the upper 40s. At last check, mostly cloudy 39 degrees in Cleveland, 36 Akron and Canton, 35 in Youngstown.
It's time for your Moron Moment.
As the foundation for your entire body, there's a whole lot to your health that begins in your feet. Proper footwear is crucial for overall health, preventing injuries and supporting body alignment. It protects your feet, supports and cushions, reduces the risk of foot problems, and improves comfort and performance. When you donate new shoes through Buckner, they will be received by one of the world's most vulnerable children. Buckner has distributed 5 million pairs of new shoes and socks to children in over 80 countries. And that's your Moron Moment.
Moron.
And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It is 7:02. With Moody Radio News, I'm Ron Eastwood.
Broadcasting live from the Bob Devine Studio, it's Mornings with Brian. Want to join the conversation? Call or text now at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Shoes can allow children simple things, for example, to play, but more importantly, to go to a school and have education.
When they get that new pair of shoes on, they just light up. It's just such a beautiful moment.
Well, now that both her son and daughter were going to have shoes, that meant they could both go to school, but not only that, she could try to find a job and work.
One of the things I loved is that you guys have delivered over 4 million pairs of new shoes and socks.
They can come to a Family Hope Center. They can learn about Jesus. Most importantly, they will know that they are important and loved by God. You're communicating the love of God to a child.
Good morning. 7:07 special edition today and tomorrow of Mornings with Brian and WCRF as we partner with our friends at Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls, Buckner International. As we ask you, out of the generosity of your heart, to provide a pair of shoes and socks to a child around the world who doesn't already have a pair of shoes. And that'll open up so many doors for them. It'll enable them to go to school, keep them
Provides
healthier.
health care.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not expensive. It's $15.
Yeah.
And they hear about Jesus in the process. We've had a couple people, Lauren, who are doing this.
Thanks to Ruth in Aurora and Shirley in Hartville, Alan in Berea, Hilda in Sheffield Lake. Thanks for your gifts.
You guys, Shirley, can't be serious.
And stop calling me Shirley.
I think every time Shirley in Hartville gives, we say that, Ron. Mm-hmm. You think so, Lauren?
I do think so.
Do you do
Just
think
about.
So? Yeah, pretty close. Again, we were talking before about how it's difficult for us here in the U.S. to conceptualize this, but you were just reading a book on the idea that a pair of shoes around the world is the gateway to school.
Yeah, it was a historical book, and the author's grandparents were, when they would go to school, his grandmother, they only had one pair of shoes for their family. And so she would go to school in the morning and then leave school early, come home, take off her shoes, take off her socks, give them to her brother, and then he would go to school for the afternoon.
Yeah. Can you imagine trying to convince your own kids to do that? My kids would be like, ew, gross. Her feet stink.
Yeah.
People aren't worried about that.
They aren't worried about that, and they want to go to school. These children want to go to school, and if they don't have shoes, they don't have the opportunity to do that.
And in much of the world, school isn't free.
Yeah.
Number one. And number two, minimum requirement, shoes.
You got to wear shoes.
And if a kid showed up with enough money for school but no shoes, they'd be like, sorry, go home. You can't be here.
Mm-hmm.
I know it might sound weird because it's so different than what we know, but it's the way the world works in a lot of countries like Mexico, Honduras, Peru, Guatemala, Dominican Republic, Kenya. That's where Buckner International works directly with people like you to provide a pair of shoes and socks along with the gospel to a kid who needs it.
Yeah, because once they get a pair of shoes and they've made a connection with this family, they invite them to their family hope centers where there's programming where they're invited to learn more about Jesus, and they have other opportunities for care and help as well.
Yeah, and I think about how easy it is for them to say yes to this, where it's like, oh, you just gave me a pair of shoes?
You're going to give my kids some shoes?
You're inviting me for more help? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's so easy to give. Again, $15, brand new pair of shoes and socks. 100% of your gift goes to giving a pair of shoes and socks to a kid in need around the world. And $60 then would provide 4 kids, $30, 2 kids, $120, 8 kids. With $15 as the entry point, I think it's so accessible, so tangible. You'll know that all of your gift will go toward putting a pair of new shoes and clean socks on a kid's feet. Where someone who loves Jesus, they do a lot of missions trips where people will go and they kneel down in front of a kid, take some wet wipes, clean their little feet, put on a pair of shoes and socks. Changes their life. You can change a kid's life with $15 and increments beyond that. So would you give? 866-774-7463. 866-774-7463. Or go to giveshoesnow.com. Again, giveshoesnow.com.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
was about 16 years old, there was a group of us in Kenya, and we were visiting an orphanage there that Buckner runs and was running at the time. And we were doing a shoe distribution. We had sent the shoes from the U.S. and the staff knew how many kids were coming. They'd already gotten the size that we needed. And so we were just having the joy of putting the shoes on these kids. And it was just a stampede. It was terrific. It was blessed chaos. And we were enjoying it. And my daughter was with us, and she was putting shoes on children just right and left, as we all were. And we all were finished, but my daughter was finishing up. She had the last girl, who was actually about the size of my daughter. And something tragic happened. We ran out of shoes. We were one pair short. And I can still see my daughter kneeling down in front of that other African girl, and this look of desperation on my daughter's face of not having a pair of shoes to put on that girl's feet. Well, all the adults are done, and we're staying around. And my daughter came over to me, and she said, "Dad, we need a pair of shoes for this girl." And I said, "Well, Claire, we don't have any. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. The staff here knows her. They will make sure she gets a pair of shoes. I promise you, they will make sure she gets a pair of shoes." My daughter said, "No, look at her. That's not good enough." And she said, "Dad, you see these pair of shoes I'm wearing? They're brand new. I just put them on when we got in the van. They've never been worn. Can I give her this pair of shoes?" And I said, "Well, Claire, I don't think that's a good idea. The staff will take care of her." I said, "And besides, you wouldn't have any shoes. What would you wear?" And she just looked at me and said, "Dad, you can carry me." Well, what was I going to say? So she put those shoes on that girl, and my barefooted daughter walked over to me, and I carried her to the van. What a powerful testimony of what it means to give everything you have.
Amen. It's 7:17 on Mornings with Brian on WCRF, and we're spending today and tomorrow partnering with our friends at Buckner International to kind of nudge you. Would you give a small amount? Only $15 puts a pair of shoes and socks on a kid in need. And then, of course, many of you can afford more than that. So the bigger increments. A couple people have already given.
Yeah, thanks to Kim in Middleburg Heights and Ruth in Aurora, Shirley in Hartville, Alan in Berea, Hilda in Sheffield Lake, Melinda in North Royalton, all giving gifts this morning.
Well, joining us now to help us better understand how the whole process works is our friend Sean Spurrier, and he serves as director of Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls. Easy for me to say. We don't know what you're doing, Sean, but you're here.
Get it out, Brian.
Welcome, Sean.
So good to be with you all this morning.
So can you kind of paint the picture of what it's like when a kid receives a pair of shoes from Buckner?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're talking about children who are coming from a variety of places. Most of them are coming from quite vulnerable situations. And really, when they receive that pair of shoes, you guys heard from our friend Scott, when they receive that pair of shoes, it's also kind of a vulnerable moment oftentimes. You know, we have a moment where we get to mirror Christ in literally kneeling in front of a child, washing their feet, and placing a new pair of shoes and socks on their feet. And in that moment, we're going to let them know that the Lord loves them and cares for them and has a plan for them. But ideally, those shoes are going to introduce them to a world of ministry opportunities that will hopefully help them achieve sustainability and their God-given potential. But it is a sweet, Christ-like moment when they receive those shoes.
Yeah, and I think it's a hard concept to point to Americans because shoes are such kind of a throwaway thing for us. Like I was talking earlier about how I have a bunch of kids, and like shoes are annoying. They're just all over the place. So how do you help people understand how big of a deal this is to get a pair of shoes in a country like that?
Yeah, that's a good point. I've got a 9-year-old little girl at home, and I'm literally tripping over shoes every morning when
all
we
the
walk
time.
out.
Yep.
We just a year or so ago, about a year and a half ago, we gave a pair of shoes to a little boy named Rodrigo in Oaxaca, Mexico. And one of the things I recall was speaking to his mom, who had multiple children, and she said that a single pair of shoes would often cost them 3 months' wages to provide. And so, it's a choice for us when we leave our houses every morning, which one we're going to wear. But for families who even have some income, it's quite the burden that we're getting to help carry for them.
And now, once the child gets this pair of shoes, the family is invited to connect in a more deep way. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So Buckner, in most of the communities where we work, we have family hope centers. And these family hope centers are outposts for Christ-centered care. We're helping children with after-school programs and moms and dads with skills and economic empowerment training. There's discipleship and spiritual enrichment, and just kind of woven throughout the programs. And so it's very often that this pair of shoes, this gift, is kind of a gateway, kind of an open door, an introduction to some really transformational work being done in their communities.
And one of the concepts we've been talking about this morning as well is this idea that shoes are a gateway to education. Again, that's a foreign concept to us here in the U.S. Can you explain why that's so important for education?
Yeah. In many of the countries we work in, children actually can't go to school without having a pair of shoes. Sometimes it's a very specific pair of shoes, even that we're having to try to provide. And so just the simple act of providing that pair of shoes allows them to go to school. But I'll tell you one more story. One of my first trips with Buckner in the Dominican Republic, we met a family who had twin boys, and they had one pair of shoes between the two boys. And they actually had to choose which boy they would send to school on which day because they only had one pair of shoes to share between them. And so, again, providing that gift allowed both to go to school and receive an education that's truly vital to their rising above poverty.
And can you talk about the impact of sharing the gospel once folks receive this pair of shoes from Buckner?
Yeah, so everything that we do, we're driven by our faith. And so we are ambassadors of Christ with all the work that we do. And we have the opportunity when we provide that pair of shoes to express the love of Christ to a child, but and they're going to be hearing it in the Family Hope Center programming. They're going to hear it through the churches that we partner with. In fact, every single pair of shoes that we provide has an encouraging note in it. And often that note is a touch point where we're getting to express what Christ has done for these children and what he hopes for these children. And so it's really interwoven throughout the process. But it really is we have limited time, but I could tell you stories of seeing moms and dads make professions of faith as they waited for their children to receive shoes.
Really?
It's just the opportunity. The Lord really uses this as an opportunity to love and serve His world, and it's just pretty amazing to see how we've just seen how He's opened doors for the gospel through this gift.
Yeah, the idea of 3 months' wages for a pair of shoes really kind of encapsulates why it's such a dramatic moment for a family, right? Where someone giving them that kind of generosity could be so earth-shattering that you'd go, I don't know whose God this is, but I'm going to follow them.
Absolutely. And, I think we're all this way. When you see somebody loving and caring for your kid, your hearts are open to what they've got, what they're all about. And we've seen on multiple occasions just this opportunity to kind of love and serve these children. That opens doors. It really does open doors to explaining why we're doing this and who we follow. And it's pretty profound.
Now, it's my understanding that you have missions trips often where volunteers can join you and actually be the people who put shoes on kids' feet who don't have shoes. What do they tell you about the experience as the person putting the shoes on the feet?
That's we do, and those are launching even more here in 2025. You get to have that moment that's very Christ-like. It's awkward. I can remember my first time distributing a pair of shoes as somebody who was a little bit of a germaphobe, and
I can relate to that.
Yeah, not knowing what this was going to be like, but to this day, that was 11 or 12 years ago. To this day, I can remember the face of the little girl in the Dominican Republic. I can remember the lighting in the room, but I could remember just how kind of holy of a moment it was. We're really having an opportunity to mirror Christ in that moment by washing their feet and spending a moment serving them, letting them know that they're loved and cared for and they're not forgotten by us or by God. It's pretty incredible. And this is also generally paired up with a chance to teach them Bible stories and do kind of a vacation Bible school setup and help them with other life skills. It's a pretty holistic event, but that moment, it really feels like a Christ-like moment.
Well, once again, this is Mornings with Brian on WCRF. Our guest has been Sean Spurrier. He serves as director. I did it again. I call you a director.
I'll answer to that.
Yeah. He's the director at Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls.
You better change your business card.
I'm on it.
Sean, thank you so much for your time today and for helping us better paint the picture of what you do as the director. at Buckner.
So good to be with y'all.
You too, brother. Now, if you can get past my inability to say director, director of Buckner, it's a bit of a tongue twister.
The director at Buckner.
Yeah.
Salary sells seashores. See?
Shells?
Okay, here's how you can give. It's
gosh.
$15 gets a pair of shoes and socks for a kid in Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Kenya, other countries. A $15 gift gets a pair of shoes and socks. You could also do higher increments, and you can do the math to figure out how that works out. We've got the list here, but like $60, 4 kids get shoes and socks. $120, 8 kids, pair of shoes and socks. Because of you. Give right now, 866-774-7463. 866-774-7463. Or go to giveshoesnow.com. Once again, giveshoesnow.com.
Let's see, if something costs less, a lot less, but people are actually happier with it, that sounds like something to look into. And that's MetaShare. Maybe you've heard joining MetaShare can save you or your family up to $500 a month, and that's huge. But it's also true, people are just happier with it. They love being part of something that reflects and promotes their values and what they believe in. MetaShare works, too. It's been around for 30 years now, and members have shared more than $7 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network, so yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care, whether you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan that you're happy with. Here you go. You can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. It's 877-58-BIBLE. That's 877-58-BIBLE. 877-58-BIBLE.
Every day, thousands of children and families face hunger, poverty, and hardship. For 75 years, World Vision has been following Jesus and serving the poor, believing in a world where children are free from poverty and equipped to reach their God-given potential. And you can be part of this work, helping children and families gain access to essentials like clean water, education, healthcare, and nutritious food. Discover how you can show Jesus' love to children in need by visiting worldvision.org/radio.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland. Looking at today's issues through a biblical perspective.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Buckner International. I'm struggling to say some words that go
I
with it.
can't even look at you. I can't. I'm just going to laugh.
It was, maybe a little hard for me at least to say director at Buckner.
Yeah.
Director Buckner. Say it 3 times fast. Go.
No thanks.
Director is how it came out.
Right.
But that's not what we're doing here, listening to me do tongue twisters. Our friends at Buckner International have a very specific mission. They want to change people's lives in the name of Jesus by giving impoverished people around the globe a pair of socks and shoes. That socks and shoes for kids opens up the door for them for many things. It's hard to understand here that this is the case, but it's true. If you provide a pair of socks and shoes for a kid with your gift, they can go to school, they're going to experience more health and hygiene, and they'll have access to some other help through Buckner International at Hope Centers.
Right.
So, would you give? $15 is what it costs to provide a kid with a pair of socks and shoes, which is not much.
No, if you tried to do that around here, you'd be hard-pressed to find a pair of shoes for $15. And then if you wanted to actually ship it to El Salvador or Kenya or wherever, it would be far above the $15 threshold.
That's right. So be like we've got folks here in Northeast Ohio who've already been giving. Would you give today? Lauren, can you share a couple of the names?
Yes, Matthew in Madison, Gretchen in Conneaut Lake, Rosemary in Poland, Kim in Middleburg Heights, Ruth in Aurora.
Yay! Thanks so much for your support of our friends at Buckner International as we point to them today and tomorrow and ask you to give to provide that pair of shoes and socks for a kid in need. And when they get the shoes and socks, they hear about Jesus. All right, here's how you do it. 866-774-7463. 866-774-7463 is the number, or just go to giveshoesnow.com. Again, giveshoesnow.com.
Can you recall the feeling of putting on a new pair of shoes as a child? Consider the warmth, comfort, and confidence. Today, for tens of millions of kids around the world, that feeling is out of touch. And for those children, shoes are the very thing they need to ensure good health and access to education. Buckner International and Moody Radio are partnering to promote health, education, and more importantly, the love of Christ to children throughout the world. Your generous gift of new shoes will provide critical care to kids in some of the world's most vulnerable places. Shoes are far more than a fashion accessory. For many, they're the first step out of poverty, and they express to a child that they are loved, cared for, and not forgotten by us and by Jesus. Will you step in and make a difference right now? More than 25,000 children are waiting for new shoes and socks, something you and I take for granted. Visit giveshoesnow.com to provide new shoes for a child in need.
They say family knows you best. Here's Brian's older brother with a message for you.
At least my little brother was able to make a career out of talking non-stop.
It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
This is WCRF Mornings with Brian, 739. And we're in the midst of a 2-day campaign, today and tomorrow, partnering with our friends at Buckner International as we ask you to donate in even small amounts or whatever you can afford to provide shoes and socks for kids in need across the globe that don't have them. I know it sounds like a weird thing here in America, but there are kids around the world who either share one pair of shoes in their family or have none. You can't go to school in much of the world without a pair of shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So your gift will not only provide an opportunity for the kid to hear about the gospel and their family when they do this beautiful foot washing ceremony to give the kid the pair of shoes, but you'll transform their life. $15 provides a pair of shoes and socks. So increments thereof, we're not sure which is appropriate, but we'll take either. So $30 gets 2 kids a pair of shoes and socks from you. 2 kids. Lives changed for $30 from Buckner. See how that works? $60, 4 kids, $120. 8 kids. You see how it works. So here's how you give. 866-774-7463. 866-774-7463. Or go to giveshoesnow.com. Giveshoesnow.com. And one of our listening family, his name is Tim, he's had a chance to travel with missions overseas to see the difference this kind of thing can make for kids. Is that right, Tim?
Yep.
Tell me about it.
Went to Uruguay, not knowing what I was getting into, and I actually had a neighbor kid give my son a brand new pair of tennis shoes. And the kid didn't want them because they were the wrong color. Brand new pair, expensive shoes. And so I took them with me thinking maybe I'll go for a run when I'm down there. And I got down there and I seen all these kids running around with bare feet through glass and metal and everything else. And the day that we were to leave to come back, I'm sitting on my cot, seeing all the clothes and the shoes, everything that I took, so many more things than I could ever need. And I just decided to leave everything there.
Oh, beautiful.
To give to these kids. And so I ended up going back 2 more times, and I couldn't wait to pack my suitcase with more things that I could give, just to take down to give back.
Yeah.
And so what's really funny is that I just got an envelope from you guys, and I haven't even opened it. It's on my counter at home. And I was running late to work this morning, heard this message, and it took me back to Uruguay.
Wow.
And the feeling, sorry.
No, don't be sorry, brother.
So it took me back to the feeling of what I seen and what I felt to be able to give. And so I want to give.
Praise God.
So,
Tim, thank you so much for sharing that story with us. And it shows really how, he's right. We have more than we could ever need that we put in a suitcase and bring on trips like this. And what a powerful thing for him to just be like, you know what, I'm not bringing anything home.
Right.
And change people's lives that way. And essentially, someone like Tim will be going on your behalf to countries like Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, Kenya, with Buckner International to give a pair of shoes and socks to a kid who needs it. Because there are kids, just like Tim saw, running around without a pair of shoes. It's obviously not safe. They can get infections, sickness, disease. But more than that, they can't go to school without a pair of shoes.
Right.
And Tim saw it firsthand, and it reminded him, us talking about this, and he's going to give because he's seen the kind of difference this can make. What about you? Would you give $15 to our friends at Buckner International? We'll provide a pair of shoes and socks to a kid. And then someone like Tim will kneel down in front of a little child on your behalf, wash their feet, and put a new pair of shoes and socks on their feet. And in the name of Jesus, because of your generosity, literally change the trajectory of this kid's life. $15 gives one pair of shoes and socks. $30, two kids get it. $60, 4 children's lives will be changed because of you. Maybe you can give a little bit more. Here's how you do it today. We're asking you to give to Buckner International today. It's not for us. It's for Buckner. 866-774-7463. Again, 866-774-7463. Or give online. You can just go to giveshoesnow.com. Giveshoesnow.com. It's pretty simple. Giveshoesnow.com. Or, of course, our website has links. And you can even, if you have our number here at the station saved, text us the word shoes, and we'll send you back a link to give now. Would you help? These kids are waiting for a pair of shoes that will change their life. We'll continue chatting about this here in just a minute.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I'm Claire from Trinity Debt Management. I'm a counselor, and the reason that I love working for Trinity is because I get to help folks with one of the hardest problems a family can face, and that's financial difficulties. In this day and age, everything is going up. You have higher utilities, higher grocery bills, higher fuel, and those credit card interest rates have gone up as well. We can help you with that. We can help you get lower interest rates, lower monthly payments. In just a few minutes, we put together a plan that gets you out of debt and keeps you out of debt. I love my job. It's a great program and a very smart way to find debt relief.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-659-9838.
I'm Claire, a Trinity counselor. Call me and become debt-free for keeps.
1-800-659-9838.
Poverty is one of the most urgent challenges of our time. Over 700 million people around the world live in extreme poverty, surviving on less than $2.15 per day. World Vision is tackling the root causes of poverty by partnering with communities to implement sustainable solutions like access to clean water, healthcare, and nutritious food, so every child can grow into who God meant them to be. You can be part of showing Jesus love and bringing hope for the future. Visit worldvision.org/radio to get started.
Get up, get ready, and get going. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
We have the opportunity to lower barriers to education with a pair of shoes. In many of the developing countries we work in, children can't walk into a school without a pair of shoes. And so we have the opportunity to promote education by just providing something as simple as a pair of shoes. We've heard stories anecdotally in some of the communities in which we've served of families who have to choose which sibling is going to go to school which day because they have one pair of shoes that they share amongst them. And so something as simple as a pair of shoes, it lowers that barrier to education, which is often one of the most pivotal keys to families rising above poverty.
7:51 now on WCRF, Mornings with Brian, and we're in the midst of a 2-day campaign with our friends at Buckner International. You were just hearing about the work that they do and the difference a pair of shoes makes in a kid's life. I love practical things. We did a campaign years ago where it was like, you can give a goat to somebody. And it was like, yeah, I can
I love that.
Wrap my brain around that. I can wrap my brain around a pair of shoes.
A whole family gets a goat.
Yeah.
A child gets shoes.
Yes, exactly. And it really does change their lives. They gave us some stories of people whose lives have been changed by this. One was of a little girl named Natasha in St. Petersburg, Russia. The only thing she owned was a stuffed monkey. Her little favorite stuffed monkey. Everything else she had to share or fight for. Like her clothes were even things that were they were up for grabs if left lying around. They were so poor. But she clearly remembers the day when a missions team arrived with boxes upon boxes of shoes that you could help provide. And here's what she remembers about it. She said, "Receiving a pair of shoes was one of the happiest moments of my life. That was one of the memories I'll never forget. Having those shoes put on my feet, that somebody I don't know, somebody who comes over and is so happy to do it, so happy to provide those shoes for us when we have nothing." She'll never forget one of the happiest days of her life was when she got a pair of shoes. And I like what our friend Tim just called. He got a pair of shoes from the neighbor kid because they weren't the right color. Mm-hmm. That is America, right? It's like, oh, Mom, I didn't want Reebok. I wanted Nike.
Yeah. I don't want Jordans. I want LeBrons.
Does he make shoes?
Yeah.
They all make shoes.
Yeah. All the big athletes have shoes.
Eddie would have been so insulted that I asked that question. Your husband, Eddie, loves shoes.
He does.
And it's a thing where in the developed world, you can have a hobby. Like, it's legitimately
Collecting
one of his
shoes.
hobbies, right?
I guess.
Why are you laughing about it?
I guess it's a hobby.
How do you think of it?
A collection.
I helped him build a shoe or a shelf for his collection. Not a shoe.
Oh my gosh.
A shelf.
You're a Keebler elf.
Yes. Imagine.
I'm a cobbler on the side. Isn't that what they are called? Mm-hmm. Yes. No, we made a little shelf for his shoesies.
Did you make one for me? No.
Did you ask? No.
But I still need a shelf for my shoes.
Again, what's the obstacle here?
Yeah. Now you know, Brian.
Now you know. Come on over.
No. I haven't been asked. Brian, will you come over and help me
You're
build a
supposed to
shelf?
know my thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Says every woman
Got him.
ever. Yep, got him. So you don't have to know the kids' thoughts around the globe. They need a pair of shoes.
They do. Right.
They can't go to school without it. They can't live a healthy and safe life without it. And they will hear the gospel. Literally, a missionary or a volunteer kneels before a little kid who has never had their own pair of shoes, washes their feet, puts on a pair of socks and shoes, brand new, and they get to hear about Jesus. You can provide this for only $15. $15 provides a pair of shoes. And then you can multiply increments of 15 and you can provide for a bunch of kids if you want to. We've seen a lot of people doing this today, Lauren.
Yeah, thanks to Deborah in Medina, Anna in Maslin, Eric in Garrettsville, Chris in Kent, Laurel in Macedonia, Terry in Burton, Matthew in Madison, Gretchen in Conneaut Lake, and Rosemary in Poland.
There you go. It's easy to give. 866-774-SHOE. 866-774-SHOE. Or giveshoesnow.com. giveshoesnow.com. It's amazing how it's really hard for me to even conceptualize the idea that somebody wouldn't have a pair of shoes. Because I remember back in the day, it's like, did I want the pump shoes or not? Remember, Ron?
Wow, yeah.
There was a little ball, and you don't remember that. You were too young for this. Weren't they called pumps? No, that's women's shoes.
But they probably did because you wouldn't want to call them inflatables.
Inflatable shoes.
Yeah, it was like Reeboks, and they'd have a little basketball on the tongue, and you'd squeeze it, and it would fill like air pockets in the sole. You'd be like, "Look at me! I'm gonna pump these up." Now I can play basketball.
Was it in the sole or was it like around the ankle for support?
I never had those. I didn't.
Yeah, I mean,
You just wanted them.
I had my soccer cleats, pair or two of those.
Sure.
Now I got the, they're kind of cool, but they're a little old. Like Skechers now makes a shoe. You don't have to bend down to put it on. You just slip your foot in it.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. I was like, look at me. I don't have to bend down in the morning. I can just slip my foot in there. And I wore them out.
You could get some clogs that do the same thing.
Like wooden ones from Holland?
No, those I feel like it's really hard to get your foot in. They're
I've
not
never
pliable.
tried. Yeah, I've never tried. Can't imagine they are good arch support.
No.
Unless you carve in the arch.
Yeah, maybe.
Sure.
Would you have to go to a carpenter for that?
No, probably just a Keeler elf.
A good wood cobbler.
Yeah, would it be a carpet cobbler? We've invented a new job.
See? And again, we have those kind of dilemmas in life. Would I like the pumps or would I like the slip-ons or the Lauren and her stilettos, always wearing the stilettos?
Not ever once in my life. Matt from Cleveland said they're Reebok pumps.
Okay, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. You've never worn a stiletto?
No.
Do you wear a heel?
Yes, a block heel.
So if you had like a
Or a
legitimate
platform
heel on with the little pinprick at the end or whatever,
I wouldn't.
You'd fall down.
Oh, yes. I would look like a giraffe. Like a baby giraffe.
I would look like a giraffe. And I don't think Buckner is passing out heels.
I don't think so.
No.
That would be not very
These
practical.
are practical shoes.
Like tennis shoes.
Yes.
Type of shoe.
Right.
And a pair of socks.
One of the stories talked about boots in this case. So
Oh, yeah.
it's whatever fits most for the area
climate.
that they're giving in.
I think for the kids, you should put on a pair of stilettos and walk around in a video.
No.
The people be like, oh, is
I
that
don't
a
even
giraffe
have
or is that
any
Lauren?
to do that with.
I'd look like a baby giraffe. Do they struggle a bit? I guess I've never watched
Yeah,
baby
they've
giraffes.
never walked before.
Yep.
Whoa!
Yeah, they got long legs. They've never walked before.
Yeah, well, don't have to worry about that when Buckner shows up around the world. Would you help? Again, $15 provides one child with a pair of shoes and socks. And so you could give more, $30. You personally would be able to be the one providing two kids with a new pair of shoes and socks. $60, 4 kids. 128 kids. Be like Marissa in Cochranton and Sandra in Millersburg, and Joyce in Greenville. Your gift today, 100% of your gift goes to these kids in places like Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, Peru, Dominican Republic, Kenya, places like that. Kids will get a pair of shoes from you. Here's how you do it. 866-774-7463. 866-774-7463. Or go to giveshoesnow.com. Again, giveshoesnow.com. Or if you know our number by heart here at the station or you have it saved in your phone, know it by heart.
Know
What is
by
it?
heart.
1986. I know your number by heart.
We're the only ones who know it by heart.
That's true.
And sometimes we forget. So you could just text us the word shoes and we'll send you back a link. Text shoes to us. We'll send it back. All right. It's 8 o'clock. Time for Ron's News.
It's Mornings with Brian, live from the North Coast Family Foundation sponsored studio. Whether it's your faith or your health, you don't have to journey alone. WCRF, Cleveland. WVMS, Sandusky. WVML, Millersburg. WVMN, Newcastle. WVME, Meadville. WVMU, Ashtabula. And with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
The major antitrust trial against Meta continues today in Washington, D.C. It's 8 o'clock. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Yesterday, CEO Mark Zuckerberg pushed back on claims that he bought Instagram and WhatsApp to block competition. He said he purchased Instagram because it was easier than building a new app from scratch. The outcome of this trial could shape how big tech companies operate in the future. 2 new flamingo statues are now standing proud in Parma. The statues have been installed, with one at Anthony Zielinski Park and the other near Broadview and Rockside Roads. And it's expected to be a busy holiday weekend on the roads. Pennsylvania Turnpike officials projected over 2 million drivers will take the highway from Good Friday through the Monday after Easter. The Turnpike says it will suspend all maintenance work this weekend to keep up as many lanes open as possible. In sports, the Guardians took down the Orioles 6-3, but the Pirates got shut out by the Nationals 3-zip. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Mostly cloudy skies with highs in the upper 40s. At last check, mostly cloudy, 37 in Cleveland, 36 Akron and Canton, 38 in Lorraine and Elyria.
It's time for your moron moment.
As the foundation for your entire body, there's a whole lot to your health that begins in your feet. Proper footwear is crucial for overall health, preventing injuries and supporting body alignment. It provides protection, support, and cushioning, reducing the risk of foot problems and improving comfort and performance. When you donate new shoes through Buckner, they will be received by one of the world's most vulnerable children. Buckner has distributed 5 million pairs of new shoes and socks to children in over 80 countries. And that's your Moron Moment.
Moron.
And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 8:02. With Moody Radio News, I'm Ron Eastwood.
Join the conversation by call or text at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Welcome to the Buckner International Shoes for Orphan Souls radio special.
One of the things I loved is that you guys have delivered over 4 million pairs of new shoes and socks.
When they get that new pair of shoes on, you can just see their whole spirits transform. They just light up. It's just such a beautiful moment.
We have little kids that wait for us. They wait for the next year for us to go and give them shoes to go to school.
You've got 13,000 children who cannot attend school. I mean, talk about a game changer. You wouldn't think of something as little as a pair of shoes and socks to children in need, allowing them to go to school.
We have donated shoes to some orphanages, so now the children can go to the school and they know there are someone that cares.
They can come to a Family Hope Center. They can learn about Jesus. Most importantly, they will know that they are important and loved by God. And by giving that gift, you're communicating the love of God to a child.
8:06. It's good to be back, especially on a day like this. It's Mornings with Brian, WCRF. We're partnering today and tomorrow with Buckner International. They are an organization that literally, as you were just hearing, provides shoes. A new pair of shoes and socks to kids around the world that don't have them. We know, like, Lauren's kids have like 18 pairs of shoes, probably.
Like 4,000, yeah. It's too much.
And they're not even that expensive. I mean, people make shoes for babies that can't walk.
Correct.
And they wear them because we're like, oh, cute.
Look at cute. They wear shoes.
And what are those ones called? Like, they're the Robies. No? Is that a thing anymore?
I have no idea what you're saying.
I feel like that was a thing. It's these weird things for like little infants.
It's not a thing anymore, apparently.
I feel like it is. Well,
I don't recognize the name.
Okay, well.
I think you're just making stuff up.
Back in the olden days. But nonetheless, it's a common thing for us. It's hard to even conceptualize this, but there's kids around the world who don't have a pair of shoes, and it creates a lot of problems for them. I mean, kids that don't have shoes, many countries can't go to school. They're like, no shoes, no school. Probably shirt too, but for sure shoes. And obviously it's not a healthy, safe thing in a lot of environments for kids to not have shoes on. And your gift today will change all that in the life of a child for $15. A pair of shoes and socks, you kidding me? So today and tomorrow, we're asking you to give to Buckner International to provide shoes for kids in need around the world. A bunch of you are responding to this, which is super exciting.
Yeah, thanks to Courtney in Ashtabula, Martha in Ashtabula, Pamela in Willoughby Hill, Marissa in Cochranton, Sandra in Millersburg, Joyce in Greenville, Lisa in Garrettsville, Tim in Valley City.
Thank you so much for your generosity. And again, I think we decided Daria is not the Imelda Marcos of Akron.
Correct.
No. But you still have more shoes than a small village, I would
do.
imagine. How many shoes do you have, Daria?
I don't know, like 5 or 6 pairs.
Oh, wow. That's a lot, Daria.
It's
actually not that many at all.
For a woman,
I have
especially.
a lot of shoes.
Yeah, my girls, it's just like, goodness gracious. Should I wear these brown shoes or those brown shoes? I don't know.
And I wear only like 4 pairs. Why do I have that many? I don't need that many.
Just in case.
Yeah, just in case.
Mm-hmm.
And yet again, there's kids around the globe that
Don't even have one
don't
pair.
have one pair. And so your gift today will provide that. And the ceremony is beautiful. A friend of ours named Tabi, who works for Moody Radio down in Chattanooga, she got to go where she says you kneel down in front of a kid when you're on a mission trip with Buckner International, and you like take some wipes and you clean their feet, you wash their feet,
Mm-hmm.
and then you put on a new pair of socks and a new pair of shoes. And again, we've heard it's like 3 months' wages.
Yeah, 3 months'
one
wages
pair.
for one pair.
Wow.
So this is a tremendous gift that they're receiving. They're so excited about. Kids will report back that it was the most memorable thing of their life was receiving this pair of shoes.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
provide a life-changing pair of shoes and socks for 2 kids. $60, 4. 8 kids could get a brand new pair of shoes and socks because of you for only $120. Would you prayerfully consider giving like other folks have already today? It's super easy to do so. 866-774-7463. 866-774-7463. If you have our number saved, you can just text the word shoes to us. We'll send you a link, shoes, or just go to giveshoesnow.com. There have been some issues with the phone number recently. We've heard some reports, so the easiest way to give is giveshoesnow.com. Giveshoesnow.com. It's 8:11. We'll keep chatting about this together with you in a few minutes, but your generosity of only $15 will literally change the life of a kid around the globe with a pair of shoes.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
When I left my house this morning, I had multiple shoe options that I could pick before I left. And it's just something that we don't really think about. But for many of the children we serve in the communities in which we work, many of them don't have a new pair of shoes. They have worn out shoes. They don't have shoes at all. So when we have the ability to give them a pair, often that's the first new item of any kind that they've received. But it's really meeting some very specific needs for us. Often there are children who are in communities in which there are multiple footborne illnesses that they can contract from walking around without a pair of shoes that are easily preventable from having a pair of shoes. Some of these are catastrophic. Children have risked losing limbs and so much more from some of these illnesses. So we have the opportunity to promote health with a pair of shoes.
And you can be the person that provides those shoes, or at least the funding for them, to change the life of a child around the world. Again, this is Mornings with Brian on WCRF. I'm so glad to be back, especially on a day where we're partnering with Buckner International to literally change the life of a child in a place like Mexico or Honduras or Kenya, where they'll get a pair of shoes that will enable them to go to school and do all those kinds of things. So would you help today? It's so easy to get your gift in. Just go to giveshoesnow.com. If you're an online kind of person, giveshoesnow.com. Joining us to chat a bit more about Buckner International and the work they do to help kids is the Vice President of Buckner's Development Administration, and it's Jeff Jones. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
So can you share with people why it's so important for kids in these countries to get a pair of shoes?
Oh gosh, so many reasons. I think on your spot, you just heard one of my colleagues, Sean, explain the health benefit to avoid illnesses that they may contract from being barefoot. I would say also educationally, it's an important factor. Many of these kids can't even go attend at their school or go to their boarding school if they don't have a new pair of shoes. And so that's an amazing impact that one pair of shoes can have, even on education. I would think it's also so impactful for their soul. It's in our name. But the idea that they are valuable and lovable and valued by someone else may be the most important thing, that they feel the love of Jesus through the gift of a new pair of shoes, and when they hear the gospel and understand that they are worthy of love.
Now, for those who haven't had the chance to, be there when the child receives a pair of shoes, can you talk about what that experience is like?
It's humbling. It is, for me personally, it is a picture of how Jesus intends for us to live life and to experience his love. So often we're burdened by so much of the darkness in this world, and this is a tangible way to really see the love of Jesus. And I see it come through the eyes of these children. When you're bending down, washing their feet, and explaining to them the reason why I'm doing this is because I serve a God that loves you and wants to serve you, and his name is Jesus. It's a priceless thing. So if you talk about how does it feel, that's really difficult to put into words other than just experiencing Jesus firsthand.
That's beautiful. And I'm just shocked at how much shoes cost around the globe. One of your colleagues was sharing that with us. Can you talk a bit about how much it would cost a family to buy their own pair?
Well, and, obviously that varies. I think in some countries it's just not part of, they're trying to find some food or clean water or shelter. And, a new pair of shoes is something they're not prepared to do. And especially when they have multiple children in the home, such a difficult thing. This would be a way for even your listeners to be involved and remove that burden from, parents of these children that are actually in their homes, and to provide opportunities for kids that don't have homes, that don't have parents that are going to try and take care of them. This simple act of giving them a new pair of shoes can open so many doors and change lives.
Could you share one of your favorite stories from a child receiving a pair of shoes?
Oh, so many stories, honestly. I would say, one of the most meaningful, I would say, was one time I was in Guatemala, and when we're distributing shoes, we want that pair of shoes to fit perfectly for that child. Even thinking about, well, let's give them some room to grow, because this pair of shoes may need to last them a while. And I remember there was a 12-year-old boy that I was fitting for a new pair of shoes, and he kept saying, these are too big, these are too big. And so we kept getting smaller sizes, and I just knew they were too small for him. And he left our setting very satisfied and happy, and I see him walking down the road, and he took his shoes off and kept walking. And I asked the caregiver, I was like, what happened? I thought that was meaningful to him. And she said, yeah, I think he's probably giving that pair of shoes to his little brother.
Ugh.
And so I was like, wow, that 12-year-old is the man of the house, and he's trying to take care of his little sibling. So we subsequently went into that home, and all of the siblings got a pair of shoes, new shoes, and he got a pair that actually fit him as well. And you can see the transformation in the whole sibling group, how valuable that was.
What a story. Again, we've been chatting with our friend Jeff Jones. He's Vice President of Development Administration at Buckner International. Thank you for taking the time to kind of paint the picture of how the process works so we can encourage folks to give.
Thank you guys so much, and for taking the time to introduce this opportunity for your listeners. We're prayerful and thankful and love the partnership.
Us too. Thanks again, Jeff. If you want to give, again, $15 gives a pair of shoes and socks to a kid like he just described, where someone will kneel down, wash their feet, share the love of Jesus, and give them something that'll change their life, a pair of shoes. It's that simple, $15 and increments therein. You could give, again, $30 and provide 2 kids with a pair of shoes that'll change their life. $120 provides 8 kids new shoes. You could give 16 kids new shoes for $240. Would you give today? 866-774-7463. 866-774-7463. Another way to remember that, 866-774-SHOE. 866-774-SHOE. Easiest way to give, though, of course, is online. GiveShoesNow.com. GiveShoesNow.com.
Moody Radio is thankful for support from listeners and businesses like Deerfield Ag Services. They help in adaptation of new technologies and techniques of farm and business management. More information about Deerfield Ag and how they can help is at deerfieldagservices.com.
Hi, I'm Mike Fabarez, Bible teacher on Focal Point. Do you ever feel like you're just skimming through the surface of the Bible? Well, I'd like to take you for a deeper dive on Focal Point, where we unpack God's Word verse by verse and bring clarity to the complex passages of Scripture. And I'm excited to tell you we have a new time slot here on Moody Radio Cleveland at 2:30 p.m. So join me, Mike Fabarez, at 2:30 as we explore God's Word on Focal Point.
Easter marks the triumphant celebration of Jesus' resurrection. But the power of Christ's victory over death is something we can carry with us every day. This April, join Today in the Word for a Bible study focused on the profound truth of Christ's resurrection. Devotional author John Kessler will lead us through the Bible to be refreshed by the hope we have in Christ. To join this month's study, go to todayintheword.com or download the Today in the Word app.
Moody Radio is thankful for support from businesses across the country, like Fellowship Home Loans. Whether purchasing or refinancing a home, Mike and Brian walk hand in hand with clients through the whole process. You can learn more about their approach to mortgage lending at fellowshiphomeloans.com.
4 out of 5 scuba diving pizza delivery men recommend listening to Mornings with Brian. The other one says Brian's humor is a little too cheesy for his taste. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
828 WCRF Mornings with Brian. I'm glad to be back, especially on a day where we're talking about the importance of shoes in people's lives. In fact, earlier, Lauren and Daria thought it was crazy, remembering when my kids were little, we got them, before they could walk, shoes, which doesn't make sense. But anyway, they were called Robies. You were looking these up. How much is a pair of Robies?
$40.
$40 for a pair of shoes to put on the
can't
feet
even
of
use.
a child that will not ever walk on them. In
I
fact,
can get shoes for myself for cheaper than that.
yeah. And you actually walk on them.
Baby shoes are
Yes,
expensive.
I do walk on my shoes. It's an important function of shoes.
But that's the funny thing about infant shoes is they're not designed for functionality.
No.
It's
They're
just
just meant
style.
to be cute.
Correct.
Yeah. So we will spend $40 on a pair of shoes for a baby that can't walk. But for $15, you can give $15 to our friends at Buckner International, and that will provide not just a new pair of shoes, but also a new pair of socks to a kid somewhere around the globe who doesn't have access to education because they don't have shoes.
And $15 is really cheap when you think about it. I
Yes.
mean, but buying the shoes, I mean, you might spend more than that if you were to get a pair for your kids, and then they have to ship them to another country. $15 is a bargain.
Yeah, I mean, it's less than half of what you spend on an infant that won't walk in shoes. So I know we can do something like this. And we've had people giving in our community. It's so exciting.
Thanks to Bobby Joe in Solon, Patricia in Chesterland, Craig in North Canton, Diane in Westlake, Ann in Titusville. I've never heard that one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, look at me, new. Anna in Beach City, Daniel in Kent.
Thank you so much for your gift. Again, $15 will change the life of a kid in places like Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, Kenya. Would you give today? We're talking about it today and tomorrow as we ask you to give to our friends at Buckner. None of this goes to us. 100% of your gift goes to shoes for kids who need them. It'll change their life. Here's how you give. If you have our number saved in your phone, a lot of you do because you text us all the time, the keyword is shoes. Just text us shoes. We'll send you back a link. Otherwise, the easiest way to give is go to a website, giveshoesnow.com. Giveshoesnow.com. Give what? Shoes. When? Now.
There you go.
Giveshoesnow.com. Coming up here after a quick break, we're going to listen back to a conversation I had with a good friend of our radio station who works for Moody in Chattanooga, Tennessee. She's been to one of the events in Mexico where children receive the shoes. She'll talk all about it here in just a few.
Wondering what it looks like to apply deep doctrinal truths to your life? Check out the course on the book of Romans from Moody and Rich, our continuing education platform. This course will cover topics like the universality of sin, union with Christ, the Christian's service, and much more. This is a text-based, self-paced e-course that you can enroll in today for just $34.99. Learn more and enroll at moody.edu/enrich.
Join the conversation by call or text at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
commodity for a lot of these families that we're working with, a really precious item. And it's interesting when you see a child receive a pair of shoes, especially if it's one of the first new items that they've received. We have children that will place a new pair of shoes on their feet and they'll run off and go play. And when we see them leaving the program for the day, we'll see their old shoes on their feet and their arms wrapped around the new pair of shoes that they got because they just don't want to get it dirty on the way home. It's such a precious thing for them. Again, it's something that we take for granted here, and it's absolutely not taken for granted with the children and the families that we serve.
You're listening to Mornings with Brian on WCRF, and what a treat. We have a friend of mine. We're traveling buddies. We went to India together. She is co-host of Moody Radio Chattanooga's Mornings with Tom and Tabby. Tabby Upton, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Brian. I am thrilled to be able to talk to you. And yes, we are traveling buddies. So next time we got to go to Oaxaca, Mexico.
I would love to do that, and I'm actually a little surprised you want to travel with me again. That's fun. It wasn't too traumatic, huh?
It wasn't. Just that one time you left me in the middle of the street. Just that one time. Everything else was perfect.
That's so funny. But now you brought up Oaxaca, Mexico, because your radio station has a long history with a new partner of ours, Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls. Can you just give us the basics of who they are and what they do?
Yeah, so Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls is a ministry that actually helps put shoes on the feet of children all around the world. Started many years ago with a preacher who traveled, I believe, to Russia and was struck by the fact that the kids were sharing shoes in an orphanage that he visited, and he wanted to help out. So it started by helping that orphanage, and then it expanded to all over the world. And the whole idea is shoes are just an entry point into what they call hope centers, where they go into a community. They're there for many years, building relationships, helping that community in terms of their spirituality, but also their family relationships, and helping them get out of poverty. So they teach different skills for entrepreneurship and other things to increase the income of the families that they work with.
Now, I love how tangible this is because people can wrap their heads around, shoes for kids who don't have them. And you had the privilege of seeing them. It was distribute the shoes, yeah?
That's exactly right. I went on one of their trips. They do missions trips to specific places, and we in the Tennessee Valley go to Oaxaca, Mexico. We've been doing this for several years, and actually we've been working with this ministry for 25 years. Wow. And so in 2019, I was able to go to Oaxaca with a group of other listeners, and we did what's kind of like a vacation Bible school style week where we would go to different hope centers, and we would play games with the kids. We'd do crafts. We'd do a Bible story. And then, of course, dun, 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 we would give out shoes. And the kids were so excited. Their parents were excited. And it's just a delight to actually see the culmination of what a shoe collection is actually doing.
Do you have a favorite story that stands out from that trip to see what Buckner is doing?
I have a couple of stories, and I'll be brief, Brian.
That's great. No, go for it.
Well, first of all, of course, putting the shoes on the children's feet. They're sitting there, but they're not like loud, like American kids are a little rambunctious. Yeah. These kids are so polite, and they're patient, and they would sit, but you could tell they were excited. And they came prepared, because after we would get out our wet wipes and wipe their feet down, put clean socks on their feet, and then give them their shoes and make sure they fit, they would sometimes whip out gifts for us. Oh. They had thought this through. They knew that they were going to get shoes, and they wanted to thank us. So I have little cards from kids. I have little dolls that they made out of yarn. I have other artwork that they gave. I took those things home with me, and I thought, wow, how thoughtful. We were giving, but they were giving as well.
And now, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go for it.
Well, that's the ministry part, but just the cultural part, I did get to eat a grasshopper. I just wanted to get that in here somehow.
How did it taste?
It tasted good. It was chili lime.
Okay. Crunchy, squishy?
Crunchy, and I was dared to do it, and I did it, but it really was crazy. I was really just counting 1, 2, 3 and swallowing it because I was I was freaking out just a little bit, but it was actually good.
Okay, now somebody might ask you, why shoes? Of all things that those who are experiencing poverty could receive, why is it shoes that they focused on at Buckner?
I think that sometimes the smallest idea, like Jesus would talk about the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed that, becomes this tiny seed becomes the biggest plant in the garden. I think sometimes God gives people what seems like a small idea, but it mushrooms. And I think shoes are that. Everybody needs a pair of shoes, whatever that looks like in that culture. It could be flip-flops in one culture, or sandals, or boots in another one. But everybody needs that. We can all rally around that. But the shoes open the door to all other types of ministry, and people will come to get their physical needs met, and then they're more open to spiritual needs as well as even emotional needs as well. So I think that's the magic of it, and we all around the world relate to shoes. When you need new shoes, you need new shoes, and so we get that, and they get that, and it's something that we can all share with each other.
Beautiful. Again, we've been having a great discussion with our friend Tabi Upton. She's co-host of Tom and Tabi in the morning at Moody Radio Chattanooga, which is a sister station of ours. We're actually big fans of Tabi and Tom, and I'm afraid if you go listen to their show, you might ditch us and listen to them. But I have to ask, how can folks learn more about what you guys are doing down there?
Hey, you can always download our podcast, Mornings with Tom and Tabi. You can hear interviews there, and you can always visit our website, moodyradio.org/Chattanooga.
Thanks so much, Tabi.
Thank you, Brian.
Oh, sweet Tabi. Just love her so much. Again, it's 8:41 now on WCRF, Mornings with Brian. And our friend Tabi was telling us all about Buckner International, this organization that we are partnering with today and tomorrow. And we're essentially using the radio waves to point to them. We're looking at you saying, look at them, give to them. Mm-hmm. Because your gift of $15 will get access to a pair of shoes for a kid. Literally, your $15, 100% of it goes to getting a pair of shoes and socks to a kid somewhere around the globe, like as Tabi was talking about, Oaxaca, Mexico, that doesn't have shoes. And that pair of shoes will then get them access to education, health, other services, and they hear about Jesus in the process. So in increments of $15, you can change the lives of kids. It's a pretty low entry point to change a life.
Yeah, it is.
So $30, 2 kids because of you. And we've had a bunch of people being a part of this.
Yeah, thanks to Jovita in North Canton, Ruth in Apple Creek, John in North Olmsted, Bobby Joe in Solon, Patricia in Chesterland, Craig in North Canton, Diane in Westlake.
So how do you give? That's the question. Well, let me tell you. GiveShoesNow.com. We've made it easy. Sometimes the marketing team struggles in organizations with website names. This is not a hard one.
/A/B/C.
_ dash, comma,
colon.
Comma. Yeah. Nope. It's just GiveShoesNow.com. In fact, there should be some sort of jingle for that, Lauren, don't you think?
No.
Give it a try. Improv.
You got it.
Daria?
You've been gone for 4 days.
I'm good.
Ron?
It's your turn.
I've got nothing offhand, but I can work on it tonight.
GiveShoesNow.com.
Whoa.
There you go. Great job.
I love when
The
companies
shoulders.
have to make up jingles for their commercials. And it's always the local car dealer or the
Like
carpet
call
cleaner.
JG Wentworth.
Yeah. Or who was the 800-588-2300
Empire
today. GiveShoesNow.com. GiveShoesNow.
Yeah.
.com. GiveShoesNow.com.
What is that thing you're doing with your shoulders?
Yeah. Basically look like they're popping out of their sockets.
It's part of the jingle. Mm-hmm. It's like if I was in the
didn't know
commercial.
jingles had dance moves.
This
Like
is radio.
there's the company locally who's like, we don't just stand by our windows, we stand on them. And then they get on top of the windows.
And they do, yeah.
No way.
They have windows on the ground, they stand on them.
That's hilarious.
We don't just...
You know those commercials that are for like random prescription drugs or whatever?
Yeah.
That they have like dancers to the jingle? We should do that.
Yeah.
We should be the dancers.
Give
and then like we
shoes
change
now.
from like a gray dress to a like floral pink dress.
Can I wear pants?
Yeah, I guess.
If you must.
And then we give shoes now.
Everything's gray and then it turns into all color.
And they're always working on a mural. Why is that?
Yeah. Now we could do that. All the kids would be sitting down, and each time they got a pair of shoes put on, they'd turn in the color and get
Yes.
up and dance away.
And we could have Sally Struthers weeping about it.
Buckner, hire us for your marketing team.
While Sarah McLachlan cries a song in the background.
There's
It's
sad
in one
puppies.
corner, she's crying. Another corner, someone else is crying.
In the arms of
And then there's us in full
angels.
color giving shoes to children.
See, you could be part of that. All you have to do is give $15 or increments thereof, or therein, or hitherto.
Let's look up the difference while you do that.
And that will change the kid's life. So here's how you do it. GiveShoesNow.com. GiveShoesNow.com. Well, you can check and see if the number's working. 866-774-7463. 866-774-7463. Or just if you have our number saved, you can text the keyword shoes. We'll keep working on that jingle for you, and we'll get back to more of our partnership today with Buckner International in just a minute.
Encourage Foster Care is a private, faith-based foster care agency located in 13 counties throughout Northeast and Central Ohio. Every month, Encourage receives dozens of requests for foster homes in Northeast Ohio. Due to the lack of foster homes, they are forced to turn away up to 80 children a month. Encourage is currently working to expand their services and support. Learn how you can be a part of the solution and help create hope for the community at buildinghopecampaign.org.
Millions of children throughout the world lack one simple item that could open the door to health, education, opportunity, and Jesus: shoes. This spring, Moody Radio and Buckner International are partnering with you to provide hope to kids in need throughout the world by providing new shoes and socks, critical care, and the love of Jesus in some of the most vulnerable places. Right now, more than 42,000 children are waiting for the first gift of new shoes. Give today at GiveShoesNow.com.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m. Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
precious commodity for a lot of these families that we're working with, a really precious item. And it's interesting when you see a child receive a pair of shoes, especially if it's one of the first new items that they've received. We have children that will place a new pair of shoes on their feet and they'll run off and go play. And when we see them leaving the program for the day, we'll see their old shoes on their feet and their arms wrapped around the new pair of shoes that they got because they just don't want to get it dirty on the way home. It's such a precious thing for them. Again, it's something that we take for granted here, and it's absolutely not taken for granted with the children and the families that we serve.
That's a wonderful anecdote there about our friends at Buckner International and what your gifts today and tomorrow will do to change the life of a child in countries like Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, Peru, Dominican Republic, Kenya. There's even some places here in the U.S. where kids are experiencing the lack of shoes.
Oh, yes.
That some will be provided with that. But vast majority go overseas, and it'll totally change their life. I think it's hard for people to understand this, but it really will.
Yeah, if you think about you walking around without shoes all the time, you're going to cut your foot on, especially if you're outside, glass, other random objects.
I mean, I never go barefoot.
Things that are going to give you tetanus.
Sometimes I step on unpleasant things in my own kitchen.
Yes, exactly. And then you have a cut, and then you go outside in the dirt again.
Yeah.
And just walk with a cut open foot in dirt or other gross things that are on the ground.
And, a lot of people don't understand either that in a lot of countries, free public education is not a thing.
Right.
And, if somebody here tried to go to school because it's free without shoes, the school would find a way to get them a pair of shoes.
Right.
And
in
somebody
the
would take care of
meantime,
it.
they wouldn't let them just walk around barefoot.
Right. But in other countries, it's like, no, it's not free public education, and you can't go without shoes. Mm-hmm. And you heard that cool story from a book you were just reading that's real reminiscent of what people go through.
Yes, this author was telling a story about his grandmother, and his grandmother would go to school, and she'd put on her socks and shoes, walk to school, go to school for half a day, and then come back home in the middle of the day and then give her shoes and socks to her brother so that he could go to school for half a day because they only had one pair of shoes for the kids. And they couldn't go to school if they didn't have shoes. So they just split up how they went to school.
Yeah, and your gift of only $15 can change that story for a kid. Because that's how much. I mean, again, baby shoes that don't actually get
$40.
walked in are $40. $15 will get a pair of shoes and socks.
They get put in a shadow box.
Yeah.
Right.
I know because I've done it.
A little shadow box of baby.
Not actually a shadow box, but it's in a keepsake box.
Yeah.
Baby's
That's all
first
they're for.
shoes.
And for some kids in various countries around the world where they're impoverished, that first pair of shoes is when they're 10, 11, 12 years old. And your $15 gift will get a brand new pair of shoes and socks onto a kid. $15 or $30 gives 2 kids new shoes. $60 gives 4 kids. If you gave $240, 16 children would get shoes because of you and your generosity. And of course, if you haven't heard this, the beautiful little ceremony they do of sorts.
Yeah.
The volunteer for Buckner International will get down on their knees, wash the feet of a child that needs shoes. Very reminiscent, intentionally so, of what Jesus did with his disciples. Put on new socks and shoes and tell them about Christ.
And then they have a full day of programming, kind of like a VBS for the day.
It just cost you $15. So would you consider it? Go to giveshoesnow.com, giveshoesnow.com. There have been some technical glitches with the phone number, so you could use our phone number to text the word shoes, and we'll send you back a link. Otherwise, just go online to giveshoesnow.com, giveshoesnow.com. We'll wrap up here in just a minute.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
TC Winans, 8:58 now, WCRF Mornings with Brian. So good to be back. I'll tell you more next week about my trip to Georgia, to Fort Benning, for my daughter's graduation, turning green ceremony, finishing up basic combat training. She's now officially tougher than me. And she was before, but now like officially. Well, we'll talk more about that next week, because now we're talking about shoes. Buckner International, we're talking about them today and tomorrow, that your $15 gift will change the life of a child who doesn't have and can't afford a pair of shoes. And they hear the gospel along with it. So it's Buckner International, and the way to give is to go to giveshoesnow.com, giveshoesnow.com. And right at the end of the hour here, we've got a new number for you. If you've been looking for the phone number, the last one I've been giving you hasn't been working properly, technical difficulties. Here's a phone number we've been told is going to work for you. 800-441-2445. 800-441-2445. But the easiest way to do it is just go to giveshoesnow.com. We'll continue painting this picture for you tomorrow on Mornings with Brian.
Serving Erie, Huron,